We're back, baby, with another episode of the Bionicle Inspiration Series, the show where we take a look at mocks from across the community to give you a bit of inspiration for your future Bionicle builds. But you could get inspired for system builds too. I don't know, inspiration happens in weird, exotic ways, so you never know what this might inspire you to do. I had someone ask if we could do another episode about mechs, and I said yes, of course. So here you go, good sir. Here is your episode. By all means, if you have suggestions for themes, hit me up, put them in the comments below. I'm always happy to hear them and happy to do some, because it had been a while since I've done a mech episode. Now, the term mech can, I think, sometimes be like referring to like 7 different things, but I am specifically focusing on, robot suit things that are piloted by some type of something. So that's what each of these mocks is focusing on today. Let's just dive into the very first mech. It's by Joxon, and this is Grappler Sucoric. There's a lot to love about this one, but I think the thing that immediately grabbed me when I saw this was the knees. So these knee pieces are these kind of printed shoulder pad pieces that specifically came on one of the first order pilots ultra build sets. Now, a lot of people always complain about sets that come with stickers because it can be really difficult to put the sticker on in a good way, and sometimes they're really crucial to the look of a set, and having to put it on at the exact right angle can be a nightmare sometimes, especially when you get like a second-hand set and the sticker's just off on the side at a weird angle or whatever. It can be a pain. But I would argue that the printing on these pieces is kind of annoying, because I would prefer to just have this piece in just normal black, not with any sort of weird, obscure, symbol on it or whatever, like the first order symbol that we're seeing here. But I think it's been put to really good use here by Joxon. He's taken something that, at least in my opinion, I'd be like, I wish this was just unprinted, and actually made it a feature on this mock. The fact that it's kind of almost like accenting the knees, because that's kind of the sort of placement that it is I think just a really good way of taking advantage of the intricate symbol that is on there. It's honestly really, really cool. So quite enjoy the use of that there. I also quite enjoy the color scheme on this mock here. Black and magenta combined with sand purple, which is a color that doesn't exist anymore. It specifically came on sets like Life on Mars. This specific set here is, I believe, where Joxon got some of these pieces from. And I think it also kind of leads into my next point, which is the little dude inside there who's just got a sort of lime crana on. I like that. Just that pop of color works really well. But it's nice to see those sand purple pieces being really nicely integrated here. We can see the sort of slightly larger sand purple piece that is this almost sort of like O-shaped piece. There's 2 of them being used here, and it's sort of where the little lime head is popping out there. Obviously that naturally has a sort of hole in it, a pretty large hole, because it was sort of made to look like some sort of like hallway or door or whatever in this specific Life on Mars set. And then we can also see some sort of like almost sort of smaller versions of that in sand purple that are being used for the feet. And again, that has a hole in it, which was meant to have some of those trans black tubes go through it there, so you could kind of shoot the aliens through it and transport them through the base and stuff like that. So both pieces have holes in them in some manner, and I like how Joxon has integrated it into the mock, using it as sort of like a pod of sorts that someone can sit inside for the larger ones, and then for the smaller ones, they're using it as a way of sort of like hiding some of the gaps in between the foot and the lower leg there. It's just a really clever looking design, and also just a nice way of taking advantage of some beautiful sand purple pieces. On to the next mock now. It's by Ted Anders, and this is Minor VA. So always nice to see a very heavily silver mock. Silver's kind of really just a color that you mainly get with your construction focused sets. You don't get too much of it with system, and yet there's still some pretty nice system integration with this mock here, especially because the pilot themselves is a minifigure. And of course, that kind of harkens back to Invasion from Below, the old Hero Factory wave, which is one of my favorites from Hero Factory, which utilized sort of minifigure versions of all of the Hero Factory heroes, and then they were in construction mechs that they piloted. So obviously, if you're looking for a bit of inspiration for mechs, definitely look to Invasion from Below, because there's some brilliant integration with that. But you can also look to minifigures, and I mean, there's so many awesome minifigures out there. It's sort of the perfect thing to integrate with your Bionicle, and I think this is a nice example of doing exactly that. Like I was briefly touching upon before with the silver color scheme, seeing the little hints of purple with that silver. It's a surprisingly nice color combination. I really like how that looks, especially when you combine it with that blue cockpit as well. They just look nice together. I think my favorite part of this mock, though, is the kind of foot and lower leg area, using these shin pieces in silver that came on a lot of the Star Wars Ultra build sets, similarly to the First Order Trooper we were seeing before there. Obviously, they're black here. I believe they come in that sort of silver color on Captain Phasma. But yeah, just a really nice way of integrating that there, where they're kind of resting on an angle and being beautifully worked together with a typical Hero Factory foot piece there. It makes for a really nice looking design here that's a little bit more unique, and makes for a very sort of special looking leg and foot design there. I just really like how that looks. Kuhon Shaden has built these Hero Factory mechs here. Now, there were some beasts that went with this. This was very much fitting into that Invasion from Below sort of style of builds, but I'm only going to focus on the mechs specifically. Be sure to check the links in the description if you want to see the beasts that they've also built, as well as some of the other stuff that this builder has made too. So let's briefly touch upon each of these individual mechs here, because they're a bit of fun. It's really nice to see people kind of customizing that concept a little bit further, because again, I think it was a really solid, awesome sub-theme within Hero Factory there. So it's just nice to see people kind of doing their own unique takes on Hero Factory mech suits for these, minifigure versions of all the heroes. So let's focus on the red one here. This one has bulk inside of it. And now, I guess typically you would expect Furno to be inside, but I actually really like the idea of them having a mech suit that is a different color to them. The other two mech suits that we'll see, that is not the case, but it just kind of makes sense and kind of works. Like, I like it. Or maybe he's just stolen Furno's mech and Bulk is just on a rampage, stealing things, taking names, and just not having it. But one thing I like, and it's kind of across all these different mechs here, is the integration of that cockpit piece in with all these other armor pieces. The way those sort of larger gunmetal armor pieces kind of wrap around the edge, and the way that the red armor piece on the bottom just sort of nice, it's kind of like a nice little lip up against the cockpit piece there. It just looks cool. Obviously, similar things happened with the official sets, but, like I said, I really like how these mocks are kind of just playing around with this system and this idea, and it's just a nice way of doing it. Surge's mech also looks really nice. I really dig the color scheme of the orange and the blue there. Those colors certainly pop very nicely. I also enjoy the kind of like shield blade weapon that he's got going on here. I don't know, I almost couldn't see it being used as sort of like climbing utensils. I can see it being used as like a defensive weapon, but also as blades, as an offensive weapon. It seems like a nice all-around kind of weapon here, which I think is cool. And the sort of angles that it's being rested on the arm there certainly look awesome too. It's just, that really grabs me. I think it's a very nice looking design there. And of course it has Surge, so I definitely enjoy this mock. Looks really, really nice. The final one here is for Evo, and I quite enjoy this one. I love how there's all these sort of like engines or different kind of like wheel pieces at the top. Specifically like how they've used some of the stud shooter pieces without any of the studs in them, so it kind of looks like some sort of like turbine or engine or something. It's just a nice design. Additionally, seeing some of the Mystica blaster pieces being used as weapons combined with a few other different things there works really well. Always nice to mix up your Bionicle and your Hero Factory pieces. It always makes some good results. And then also the foot design using some of those armor pieces that we were seeing before being used on the red mech there, putting that as the foot design with a little yellow washer on the edge there. That's just a nice little pop there. It's cool, and it's a nice foot design too. So yeah, some lovely work here playing around with that awesome concept from Invasion from Below. These look fantastic. On to the final mock now. This is kind of a bit of a two-parter, but these mocks sort of go together nicely. This is an IG-88 mech and a Boba Fett mech by Greg Darlink. So as you can see in these photos here, the bases sort of come together and it forms this nice little sort of diorama of sorts. But they can, of course, be separated because these are inherently two different builds. But I love that idea. It reminds me of old sort of like action figures and toys where it would do that, where it's, oh, you got to collect them all and then put them together like that. It's just a really fun concept. And I always like a good base underneath the mock. It always is just that nice little finishing touch here. And these are fantastic bases with some beautiful, nice sort of like sand techniques there and some kind of rock work and other little details like the Sarlacc pit and the Crate Dragon skull skeleton stuff. It looks great. Let's focus specifically on the IG-88 mech first off. I like that this actually could kind of just work as an IG-88 mock just on its own. But of course, IG-88 can pop out, and he does sort of control this larger mech suit. Same with the Boba Fett mock as well. But yeah, it's just a very fun, kind of clever concept. And this build has done that with a few other bounty hunters and different things, so be sure to check the links in the description, see some of the other stuff they've done. They're actually a really good builder. But some of the details that I love on this IG-88, obviously it's very accurate to the source material, but I love seeing some of these whip pieces being used as exposed wires and things. And again, that's accurate to the source material, but I like that idea. I feel like you could very effectively do that on any other kind of Bionicle mock, having, you know, exposed wires lying around, and this very sort of like thrown together kind of junk look that you can kind of specifically see on the legs there, using a bunch of different wheel pieces and gears and different things. It makes for just a really cool looking aesthetic, this sort of unarmored metallic robot of sorts here. It's just been very effectively recreated in Lego form. It looks beautiful. Let's also quickly move over to the Boba Fett mech here. This one's just gorgeous. I really like how the helmet looks there, how that's been translated into Lego, and the fact that it, I don't know, it seems to have some more sort of like sharper angles to it. It definitely makes it look like some sort of robotic mech suit of sorts. So I like that there's a little bit of a deviation from the source material, but still very, very close to it at the same time. Also, great use of a cape piece that came on an Ninjago set called the City of Styx. This sort of beautiful dark blue cape here I think works really well at conveying Boba Fett's cape. Of course, I don't believe it's actually dark blue, but this is a mech. It can be whatever it wants to be. It works. And the sort of tattered look of it is very fitting in that sense. I also like how he has built the jetpack on the back here, which is very similar to his dad's. This is all from Star Wars canon in that sense. And because of that, he's actually used one of the printed pieces that came on one of the old Slave One micro ships from, oh gosh, was that like 2000? Oh, no, well, probably would have been about 2002 or 3-ish. I don't remember the exact year, but I like that idea of taking pieces from something that is related to Jango Fett, since it is in fact Jango Fett's jetpack, because it's the same color scheme in Star Wars canon. It's a nice way of recreating that there. Really, really cool part use. And also just a great way of taking advantage of some printing, very similarly to the mock we saw at the start of the episode as well. So we've come full circle, guys, as we finish off this episode. These have been some absolutely awesome looking mechs here, and hopefully it's given you a bit of inspiration if you want to build some mechs yourself. Like I said, check the links in the description to other stuff that these builders have done, as well as links to the mocks that you saw today as well, and maybe you could leave a comment on their stuff and let them know what you think of what they've built. Additionally, in the description below is links to my own social media, so you can check out stuff that I've got going on over there, and if you want to submit some of your own mocks to the show, you can submit them through the submission email that's on your screen right now. Thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you very much enjoyed. Happy building, and bye for now.